My name is Anurag. Rana. I'm a technology analyst with Bloomberg Intelligence. Let's see if my slides work. Yes. So Bloomberg Intelligence is Bloomberg's in-house research arm. We cover about 135 industries, close to 2,000 companies, and our research is published on the terminal, looking for for our clients. So wanted to get away and talk about the conference today, and the whole discussion is, about the visa program, like what's really happening for high-skill visas and how does it impact almost all of you that are in the audience today and beyond, looking at every company going through digital transformations. So we presented at the same conference 2 years ago. These were our key takeaways at that point. We read them out to you. Expect greater scrutiny on the H-1B visa program. Now, this could mean more students could go to Canada over the US. The shortage of high-skilled labor only to get worse on rising cloud and AI demand. No significant changes in corporate IT budgets. And then, all these factors could drive more work offshore. So let's see where we are today. This is absolutely true. So there is a lot more scrutiny on H-1B visas, especially for the outsourcing companies such as Tata Consultancy Services. We see this is their H-1B approval ratings for the past few years. This is nothing new, given if you think what the government was proposing around that time, as to there was a lot of political rhetoric around outsourcing companies. Second, looking at one of the things we said was this could drive more students to go to Canada. Well, what's happened is we have seen a lot more inflow of students into Canada as well as Australia. This is new student enrollment in the US. This is a report that comes out every year. Another thing that we researched while we were looking at this thing, in Canada there are close to about 600,000 students right now. That's, as of August of last year, that's an increase of 60% over the year before. So we are seeing a lot more international students with graduate degrees, a lot of them with science technology background moving away from the US into Canada. This is one of the reasons that was cited in the report that tracks this particular data as to what were the bigger drivers for students not to come to the US. And you could see, visa delays and visa denials is top of the list. These are the countries where we are seeing less inflow of students into the US, Mexico, Canada, India being some of them. Then the other thing that we talked about was, shortage of skilled labor only to go up over the next few years because of cloud demand, because of AI demand. Now, this is just one example of cloud demand actually accelerating over the last 2 years. And frankly, if you look at cloud in general, people have been talking about it for 15, 20 years. But cloud spending as a percentage of total technology spending still is less than 10, 15% or so. So cloud spending anywhere is around $150 billion or so, give and take. And when you look at global tech spending of about $1.5 trillion, cloud still represents only a small portion of total tech spending, which means we have a long way to go before we can call this a mature market, whether that's on the infrastructure side, where you have Amazon, Microsoft, and Google playing, whether it's on the platform side, where again you have Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Salesforce, and then when you have on the cloud application side, where you have a pure play company like Salesforce or Workday, you also have SAP and Oracle that are really running behind them. The growth rates for these businesses still are 25 to 30%. And what happens is, as companies through every ecosystem, whether they are in the banking industry, media industry, as they look to transform their business more digitally, they have to hire more skilled people. And that's a problem because we really don't have that many engineers on an organic basis. And the visa issues are making it difficult for people to come in and work in some of these jobs. This is one of the most interesting concepts that we talked about 2 years ago. It says one of the most unintended consequence of putting really tight screw on the H-1B visas for the outsourcing companies will be that more work is going to go offshore. So as we mentioned before, that one of the things we talked about was corporate IT budgets are not growing double digits. They are at best low single digits or flat. So what happens is, A bank is not going to go out and spend more money just because there aren't that many engineers coming from outside to work on their locations. They will basically go to the vendor and says, it's not a botheration to me. I mean, I am going to spend $100 to $105 next year. You figure out how you're going to allocate that capital. So what happens over there is your budget is divided into a couple of parts. One is on the run, or the money that's needed to operate your business. And the second one is you have to invest in emerging technologies like AI, cloud, et cetera. So in both cases, how you divide it, it's not up to me. Then what happens is the legacy IT stuff, you're going to see companies will say, you know what, I don't have to worry about the 70-30 split of 70% of the work being done in our offshore location, 30% or less than that being done onshore. If you want, you can send all of that offshore. So what we are seeing is because of cost-cutting pressures, you are seeing a lot more work go offshore. People don't talk about it because that's not something politically companies want to discuss. But if you look at some of the numbers of constant currency revenue growth rate for the largest IT outsourcing company like Tata Consultancy Services, we have seen acceleration in the last 4 quarters. Now, this acceleration is also driven by more investments in cloud. That also helps there. But if you look at it, cost cutting is a very big factor in this thing. One of the things we talk about is the average IT operating cost for an average employee in the US is about $100,000 to $120,000, depending on the location. In India, it's somewhere around $20,000. So the delta is huge. So if you cannot get more work done in the US, you will see more work moving offshore. This is the stock price of Tata Consultancy Services and IBM post-election day. If you were to track both of them, because at that point, I think back we looked at it, the market cap of TCS is actually bigger than IBM at this point. And you could see that last 2 years of scrutiny hasn't made any difference in their business fundamentals. In fact, it's actually helped them. So now getting into what we think is our key takeaways for the next few years. It's pretty much the same that we talked about 2 years ago. We really don't see any indication from the government that they're going to make any difference in the H-1B program, or in fact, the green card program. And what we are seeing is the green cards are getting even more difficult to get at this point. There is a lot more scrutiny on spouses, I think, to get their H-1B. Renewals are a big problem at this time. So what that's going to do, once again, is you're going to see more technology centers being set up outside the US, whether that's going to be Eastern Europe, whether that's going to be Canada. We'll see the acceleration of demand in that, but that's going to be an issue. In our opinion, the way you solve this problem is actually increase the quota of the H-1Bs, make it easier for science and technology graduates to get their green cards, because that's one easy way to attract more high-skilled talent in the US. The stuff that we talked about in terms of rising AI and cloud demand, again, we are still in the early innings when it comes to cloud growth. And the next big area that we see is, we call it the customer 360, or your ability to see your customers' insights from the front office as well as the back office. We are seeing a lot of investments going by companies like Salesforce, SAP, and Adobe that are creating new software products that can help that will enable you to see this kind of a holistic vision of your customer. We think there's going to be a lot more technology investments going into that arena. We also don't see massive changes to corporate IT budgets. Banks, insurance companies are all trying to save more cost. This is even a bigger issue for companies that have branches in Europe. Because of Brexit, there is a huge uncertainty as to what's going to happen over there. So they are really pulling back on their IT budgets and trying to outsource whatever they can in the meantime. Once again, if the visa program is not overhauled properly, we think it could drive more work offshore, which is going to help these offshore companies sustain that growth rate compared to those that are US-based. So that's it from me. Thanks for your time.
Ready?